I mean, if you're in a rush or anything, we don't want you to leave, but if you have to, they do to-go orders. But, yeah, Q&A would be great.
Sure.
We've got a lot of questions. Go ahead, anybody.
Yeah, I find it interesting, you know, we talked about silent majority, and for the most part, that's perhaps most of us. And what makes us a silent majority? Because we are so intimidated by the other side that we don't speak up. So now I start wearing a hat. And it's subtle, but I've gotten more compliments in the past few months. Nobody has challenged me on it. I have a bumper sticker, but I'm no longer silent. How many of you folks, rhetorical question, can say you're doing something similar? You know, I've had people stop me and we engage in a conversation. They said, yep, we need to do the same. So my challenge to you folks is, stop being silent. Who is going to carry the water for us if everybody is silent?
I think that most Americans go to work in the morning, come home in the afternoon, take care of the kids, or do their hobbies, you know, go golfing on the weekends, fishing, hunting, whatever. And politics isn't a big factor in their life. They don't really see the hostility going around. But for some of us that watch the news a lot and pay attention, you'll hear the screaming coming from that kind of mob mentality that you're mentioning. And you know, that mob mentality, you know, a lot of it comes from the fringe left that is over here. While most Democrats are just normal American people, especially when it comes to our elected officials, we need to speak our mind to them. We need to call them. We need to hit their Facebook pages up. And we don't have to be rude about it. We just have to tell them, hey, this is what's on my mind. Even if there's somebody from the opposing party that you're in, just tell them what's on your mind. Tell them what you want out of a politician, what you want for a certain issue. Anybody else? Sir?
Yeah, I'd like to say that I do a Facebook profile of awareness. And there's people probably in here that's on my site. I get information from all over. And in awareness, to me, it's been like digging a hole. You know, more you become aware of, the more you dig.
Yeah.
And then the more you try to find the truth, because there's a lot of
The rabbit hole. Yeah.
Right. And then you find yourself digging on both sides, and then you find yourself in a hole. And I felt in politics, the government is established, when it's true and it's used right, it's for our good. So there's a lot of chess being played on both sides. And,
Sure.
and I'm a conservative Republican. I also voted for Trump. I also called out Bill Clinton back in the day when his nose was always red. You know, what's up with that? You know, but through and even George Bush, why was he always nervous? You know, but last year, I'd like to give you some numbers. It's an easy number to remember because it's a .308. It's a high powerful rifle. And it was also the number of law enforcement where there was 150 law enforcement officers committed suicide last year. Okay, the number with military, I couldn't keep up with it. I couldn't post all of it. The number of illegal immigrants in the United States committing crimes with guns, I couldn't post it. I got sick of posting them every day. It made me sick, you know, and all the people think I'm crazy, you know, like, man, are you stuck on it? No, I'm trying to bring awareness to it.
Sure.
So, even in the military, big issue now, PTSD. That red flag law, what would it do to far as the law enforcement and our military?
Well, I think we already have laws in the books that, you know, we have background checks. We have, that do check for mental illness. Now that's a whole other debate on what is considered mental illness. But, we definitely have to have a way of detecting if somebody is going to do harm to themselves or somebody else. How? Well, nobody's really figured that out yet. And I don't think we're gonna figure it out today. So, we just have to, you know, as as our own people, as Americans, we have to tell people, hey, we all know somebody in the military, we all know police officers, first responders. We all just have to keep our own eyes open, you know, and reach out and help people when they need help. Sir?
As a 26-year veteran, federal law enforcement, 10 and a half of the border patrol, and it's still illegal aliens, they're not immigrants. My mom was an immigrant, by the way. They're still legal aliens. In Mississippi, are there proposed laws already written? Like, I'm wondering what the left and right limits are of all the already approved laws. Like, how different are the most lenient and more strict? And these kind of trigger something. I have retired credentials. I can carry pretty much anywhere in the United States. I taught enhanced carry as well. If somebody sees my Facebook blog, and since I'm retired, I do write quite a few. I post stuff. That pisses my sister off who lives here. She's on the left side of the fence, but I don't think she'll turn me in. But if someone were to fill out a form and say you're a current law enforcement officer, are they exempt? I mean, what if a police officer come to my door?
This was actually a conversation we had this morning, that
Yeah.
we haven't found any instances of it.
I'm
you know,
probably more
California.
trained than most cops that would come to my door.
Right.
anyways. But I'm not gonna answer my door, first of all.
Right.
Maybe slide a warrant under my.
Sure.
And that's another thing too, with the red flag law, are there warrants that the judge stamp, that is?
Red flag laws vary by state. So if Mississippi, God forbid, were to create one, it would be different than California's, or Maryland's is different than Indiana's. So they're different, each place. I don't know the answer to that question. I will find out now that you asked if there are actually warrants. I would imagine that there are warrants that come with these red flag laws, because it's tough to come and confiscate something without a warrant.
Well, the guy in Maryland shouldn't open the door to begin with. I was reading the article, but
Sure.
I lived in California for 25 years. I came back home for that reason, one of the reasons. So hopefully, those people don't move here and run for office.
So you mentioned, you know, having the license to carry. You know, in Mississippi, not too long ago, I think I mentioned this in the beginning, I get arrested for standing here with a sidearm, because you needed a license. And what is a license? You needed to pay the state a tax. You had to pay a tax for your basic rights under the Bill of Rights. And that was not too long ago. I asked a few people, you know, how long do you think that it's been legal to carry a gun in Mississippi, you know, openly? And people are like, oh, 1800 years? Oh, 2013. Before that, you couldn't do this. We're talking 6 years ago. And as far as concealed carry, you know, Mississippi has what's called constitutional carry, and I love that term, constitutional carry, because the Constitution grants us the right to carry a sidearm, whether it's open or concealed. So in 2016, we enacted constitutional carry law. Before that, you needed to pay a tax to the state to practice your constitutional rights. So in many ways, Mississippi is moving forward. We might be last on a few lists, but as far as the Second Amendment goes, we are leading the pack on that, and I'm very proud of Mississippi for that. But as you know, there is a pendulum that swings back and forth, and we need to make sure that that pendulum does not sneak back to the side where they start removing rights from us in Mississippi. We also need to get on our Mississippi legislators that we send to Washington and make sure that no federal laws trump our state laws.
You know, Brian, another thing I heard the lady mention was, some people prefer to have the guns in their homes when they have kids. So that's part of being a parent, you know, I mean, you know, thank children. I got 14 grandkids, 7 great grandkids, 4 kids. My house is full of.
Would you let your 4-year-old play with a butcher knife?
No.
You keep it away from it, right?
Butcher knife or a gun. That's my gun to put up.
You keep it away
So
from
that's
it.
part of being a parent, you know,
Yeah.
taking care of your kids.
Absolutely.
Well, I
Mr.
grew-
Mayor.
I grew up out in the country, and the thing is, we had 410s and whatever behind the front door. You knew what that gun was for.
That's right, Mama. Everybody in Mama had a gun.
That's right.
You were told.
But you were taught, you know, and now my 9-year-old grandson, he sees a gun, he's scared to death of it, because that's what we've taught them now. Not to have to respect it and handle it, but to be afraid of it.
Well, you think it's another thing, I got grandkids, and my grandsons, they hunt. And when they're little, they go hunting, you know, with their dad. And then they have, it's called a BB gun. And then they worked their way up to that 410, and now they got AR-15.
Well, growing up in the country, it's like a rite of passage when you're 12 to get your first shotgun. I know I did.
Yeah, when they get
So I just want to say that when this discussion first started happening with the red flag laws, I went to some of the legislatures, some of the local legislatures, and I told them, and some of them, you know, were varying. Some of them knew exactly about the law, some of them not so much. But I've told them flat out that if you run for office and support these laws, I will actively campaign against you. So, you know, I don't think we have anything to worry about in Mississippi, but you never know. You never know. It's important to let you know, like Brian said, let our legislators know from both sides of the aisle, this is not a negotiable position. This is if they support this, they will be voted down. So
I think the federal side is really what we need to be worried about.
federal side too, yeah, absolutely. But you know.
Do you think
all
email, phone calls, Facebook, what is the most effective from
all
a?
the above.
Yes.
So do all three?
All of the above.
face to face, everything.
Yeah. So that's what I wanted to say. I was taught gun safety. I was taught to respect guns when I was little. I think that's really where it starts, at the home and in the churches and in the family. So we don't need government dictating to us.
I made a post about a year and a half ago on Facebook, and I said, what kind of guns do you have?
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah, and I did it kind of tongue in cheek to see who would answer and list their guns, and who would say things like, well, I sold all my guns. You know, we are fortunate enough to be in a state where we don't have to register our guns. And nobody really knows what we have and what we've sold and what we've lost and what got stolen. So as far as burying your guns, what guns? I don't have any guns.
I got you.
I'm selling this one.
Hey, Regina Brink from Fro Liberty. My blog was created specifically as a pushback.
I know, I read it.
Because
What's the
every
name of
time,
it?
Fro Liberty,
Okay.
Fro Liberty, every time there's a mass shooting, if you're a legal gun owner, you answer tons of questions and you seem to be the focus of the blame every time anything happens. So if you're that person, what are talking points that you would say, hey, I'm just like you, and this is what you say? And before you answer, people here have been told that gun confiscation by our police force doesn't happen here in America. I invite each and every one of you to go to YouTube, and there's a video called The Untold Story of New Orleans gun confiscation. And I'm just gonna
Oh, yeah.
mention a
Hurricane Katrina
small,
you're talking about.
exactly,
Yeah.
one small story. There was
That
a woman.
Federal under
Yeah,
under
that
George
was
Bush.
a
Sure.
woman that was 87 years old. Her home did not flood. She had food, she had a generator. They knocked on her door and they
She
said,
had
hey,
family members standing
Exactly.
guard.
And
Yeah.
what
And-
happened, what happened?
they came to her door and they said, are you okay? And she said, I'm fine, I didn't flood.
The 101st Airborne came to
Yeah,
her door.
well, that and some elements of the New Orleans police. And she said, I'm fine, please just leave me alone, I'm fine. And they said, do you have a gun? Now remember, this is an 80-plus-year-old woman, and she says, it's right there. When she pointed at it, 5 guys piled on top and beat this woman black and blue.
Oh, no.
Now, we are what,
see that.
17, 18 years past Katrina, and people that had their guns taken are still fighting the state to get them back.
Sure, there was another house, say, right after Katrina in New Orleans, that it's the biggest state home, and all the cousins and nephews came, and they all stood guard around the house, and they were carrying shotguns, and they came and zip-tied them all. They were all sitting on their knees because they were protecting the family estate, and they had their guns confiscated from them, and that family still has not gotten their guns back.
Yeah,
There are
so-
dozens of stories like that. You know.
So what talking points would you give people like me
So
who
I think the
are,
first thing that you talked about was, you know, by being kind of an activist, you know, I don't consider myself a gun rights activist. I'm a rights activist. I'm a liberty activist. I'm an activist. I'm the guy that tries to make people aware of their when their rights are being taken from them. So you're not pushing for more people to have guns. You're just pushing for more people to exercise or understand that they have the right, if they want to, own guns. And that doesn't make you part of the bad guys, but you also can say, I also push for law enforcement to do their job, and for them to have the tools that they need to do their job, and lock up real bad guys, and keep illegal guns off the street. We already have laws for that. So I'm advocating for enforcing the laws that we have, and keeping people free under the blanket of the Constitution. So that's not, he's a gun rights activist, he's a gun pusher. I hate it when people say that. If you don't want to own a gun, don't own a gun. Just don't tell me I can't own one, you know?
Hey, everybody give him a hand. I mean, this has been a